Continue. Hey, we are back in normal. Uh,
In
this is
squares.
normal. Yes, we are back to the normal setting, I guess. This is normal.
Well, we are in the square, so
We're in the squares. We are back in the squares. True. So I don't know if this is chat or this is backstage. We will see. What is it?
we'll see.
But it's nice to see you. I can say that.
Yeah,
Um,
it feels more natural. I don't know.
feels different. But
Right,
at
that's
least
true.
at least I don't think it feels different. What I think it feels different is the chat, because when we were doing the chat in the spot, it just feels so you have to speak about something. You know what I mean? Like when we are in the spot and we said like now we do a chat, it's like you feel the pressure. I was feeling the pressure like now I have to speak about something because it's the
True.
chat. But now, like this could be the chat. We'll see where it goes. But I don't feel that pressure, you know?
True, because oh my gosh, now like my thoughts are like kind of clicked, and now it's like the chat like moment. How do I say? Like it's kind of opposed to what you said, but like now I
Oh,
kind of start to like feel that no, because I started to feel like okay, now I'm in a chat, but as you said, now we can choose to be on the backstage or not.
right. Yeah.
But
Okay,
it's
okay.
okay. I think it's okay. Like even if it's backstage,
Ah,
I think it's fine.
no, but
Like
I
how
think
I feel now.
no, no, okay, but it maybe makes sense. The way how I see this is like I think the difference is like now we are in this zone that we don't know if this is a chat or not, and we are like we'll see. Um, but if we are in the space because we want to put something online, it's almost like we know this is a chat. You know,
Yeah,
it's like the time frame. I think we don't give too much space for say like we don't upload that, but every time we say like this is a chat, we were speaking in the chat format.
yeah.
You know.
I mean, basically every time it's like everything else is backstage because we just talk
Yeah.
when we're there. That is the
Yeah, but
backstage, which is not
but the
recorded.
difference is like here we keep it open and then we decide like now becomes chat.
Exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. That's the really huge difference because now it can be either way. But if we start film and then in real life we meet, and then if we start filming and then we wouldn't say that's a backstage. That's a little bit weird. I mean, we can keep
Oh,
it. It's a private video.
it's a private yeah, but I see. Yeah. I see. Yeah, I
But I
see.
think it's also like related to performativity in a way, maybe.
It's very much about performativity. I
Yeah,
think it's yeah.
interesting.
But it's funny because like anyway, like I think because anyway, like here in a way, like if we are not recording, always there is the performativity. It is within identities, right? And there's what like Judith Butler, she will speak about identities and gender trouble when she speaks in the book. There is all this trouble with gender and identities and things that you cannot escape somehow, not only because of you, but things that you just grew up with and the society that you are. So I think what is different is that in the chat somehow setting the framework of the chat, then in a way we are in a container, that in a way yeah, I feel it's kind of like a container that it contains certain topics. But if I'm out of the container of the chat, then I can be myself, which in both states we are performativity is in there, but the container, like being within the container of the chat, in somehow means performativity in terms of I think like ecologies of economies are more in there implicit because I think directly or indirectly we are trying to do something. You know what I mean? There is an intention, there is a clear intention to talk in the chat framework. While while when you are out of that container, it's just anything. So it's still about performativity, but it's just my life and your life and everything. So there is not a clear purpose in the chat out of the container.
Oh, they
But
have different container.
could be, yeah, one can say, there could be like a different container, yes. But then what I'm trying to say is like performativity in both cases stays. The difference is like in the chat, in a way, the economy somehow comes in within like the ecology in terms of like of production in a way. There is a clear intention. We are here to speak about the chat, say.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
But in both cases, there the performativity is in there. Maybe
Yeah.
going back actually to what like Uli in the last chat that we have, she was mentioning like in terms of science, when she would make the relation between science and art, and like that both have these research fields, but like difference is like how much like in science you have to quantify results in order to get supports of grants, of like there is this
Mm.
sense of measuring attached to science uh, to quantify how good or bad is the
Evaluation.
research. Sorry again?
Evaluation,
Yes, all these
basically.
kind of things that in art we don't really have. And I'm mentioning that in as an analogy as how I see performativity in the chat or out of the chat. Like I think in the chat, in a way, implicitly we're trying to evaluate. I don't think it's evaluate, but in a way we are trying to, it gets in that's what I mentioned, ecology as an abstract way to mention economy, because there is a clear intention to try to be within a framework that is somewhat functional. I don't know, it's not just you and me talking, but it's the
Mm.
chat.
Yeah, because that also comes with like ourselves in the sandbox. That's already like kind of someone else that we try to treat. So it's not just two of us, but already four people involved in a way.
In the
And
chat.
also because chat is part of the practice. Well, not part of the practice, but it's in parallel and it
Yeah.
cannot exist without the practice. I mean, that's actually like I never thought about like because we do it as best practice chat, but can it stand if we don't do the practice?
I mean, but that's, yeah, I've been thinking of that because, for instance, you said that, and I was just thinking like the way how I see it is that, because for me, clearly, is like in the practice, I'm trying to escape Jorge's identities as much as I can, right? So to not be rational. And in the chat, then I will just be Jorge somehow and with all my identities. And then I just try to think rationally in that context. So from that point of view, I will say then, like when we speak about the sandbox, like when I really see as a sandbox is always the practice. But of course, like in a more global scope, one can say like the chat is a sandbox itself. But for me at the core, like the sandbox as I see is the practice, because it's in there that I can just risk. Yes, I think maybe that's a good way to see it. Like in the practice, sandbox is the place that I can risk anything, and it's part of the game. But in the chat, not so much, I guess. But I think this is interesting because we're, for people who are seeing, this seems like to me very much this is going to be a chat, I guess.
Yeah,
um
we just assume.
it seems like it's just in the way how we start
Or
speaking
maybe
out
I
here.
started to talk about my colleagues and then bad
um
things about them. So
so but
no, but then I think what you said is like really interesting to me because like when like earlier you said the word container for the chat, and then I immediately associated with the sandbox. But then, as you said, it's not something where we risk or how do you say it? Like it's it's not like I'm just like trying to really picture like how sandbox is like as an adult you don't, even if you have the sandbox there you can sit around it but you won't really play with sand or you don't do crazy stuff like kids. Like what we would do in the practice, but that's not what we do in the chat. And it doesn't have to be the sandbox. Like it's a container, but it doesn't. It can be on the grass or it can be in someone's apartment.
What I think I like is in a way, because for me, like the sandbox is more like a global. I mean, I always like think I have to think directly to virtual machines because it's what I learned. Like, so then I will think in container and in images, you know, like then I will think like an image will be more like an image is something that just you start, is something that is temporal, right? Is like, while the container is something that, for instance, two images cannot be, if two images are created from the same container, they cannot be on at the same time because they will be initialized from the same container. So like a
Like
good like
image, yeah, sorry, the image is the, how to say, the running
the
instance.
executable. I think image is the executable in a way of, I don't know. I think I'm mixing, but I think in practical terms, because I was working with data this year, is like you create a container from the virtual machine, and then from the container you need to create in a way an instance that is the image, is the one that will execute this thing. So a best practice in this case in Docker, that's what I learned in Docker, is like every time you finish, if you know that you're using different virtual machines, you just erase the image because you
Mm.
have to recreate a new one. And if you don't do that, sometimes the image stays open, and that can create conflicts because they will use part of the port or something that stays open.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, what I found funny is like, because you said image and that was really slow, and I at first I thought like the picture like image like this, but then like why is it called image, like this Docker? Like now I understand. And you can say image for, like Linux
It seems
image.
like, if I think in image, like I don't think it's like what I think it image is for me, because now you're mentioning the image back. It seems to me it's a screenshot. So it's like a slap. It's like is the picture of the moment that it was created. It seems to me that it makes sense, like from where it comes from at that moment. Uh,
No, I think it's actually the opposite, because you can run an image and you can take not a screenshot but like a snapshot, like as kind of, where you can go back, like not, maybe not for Docker, but for example like database, I don't know, or file system actually, like a copy, that where you can, point where you can go back. It's like a snapshot. So image is like more like, how to say, dynamic, alive to
Wait,
me.
I found this from my things. So it says like images versus containers. It says a Docker image is an immutable, so unchangeable file that contains the source code, dependencies, tools, and other files needed for an application to run. The container is a virtualized runtime environment where users can isolate apps from the underlying systems. These containers are compact, portable units, and blah blah. Uh, so the Docker is what is running. The you is an immutable file that contains is an immutable file that contains the source code, dependencies, tools, and other files that needed for an application to run. In a way, it's like it, it seems to me like an analogy is like when you in processing or in P5GS that you have you initialize everything, and then after you have a loop, like I think also in
Yeah.
C in these programs you have to basically assign resources of the computer, and then after you run the loop of the code what you need to do. So the first one it just does one time, and the second one is loops.
And sorry, how does it relate to the image?
Don't somehow I see that, that in a way like the Docker, that the container in a way it seems to me is like the setup, and the
Mm.
image is like the running environment.
Mm, I don't know. Now I'm getting more confused because I think this is something I try not to like think too much, and I I never properly studied this. So, but I just like generally found interesting like why they call it image. Because again, I don't think it's actually a screenshot or snapshot, but image can be. You said it contains, no, not contain. Image is like source code is
Yeah, it contains
part
the
of
source code,
part
like
of the
all the
image.
libraries, dependencies. It's like the runtime environment. No, 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 it's not true.
Hmm.
No, it's the file that contains the source code, libraries, dependencies, tools, and other files needed for an application. Seems to me it's like the source code. It's basically the source code.
It's the image. Wait a second. Ah, no, I don't have Dropbox. I know Dropbox, VirtualBox. Because on the other computer, my desktop, I have the virtual machine, like literally like runs like virtual windows, and sometimes I use it in the practice because they also have. But I think the image is like what you select to run. I
An
mean,
image. Yeah, literally an image. Like, yeah, like because the virtual machine will be a square. No, I don't think the virtual machine is even the square, but the square is already from the image itself. Like the square, and then inside you put the windows or something.
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah.
Could be. No, I mean, it doesn't make sense that the image is literally from the moment that you start seeing the image.
Hmm. That is the virtual box image. No, I think I'm confused with image and instance, or are they the same? Because instance is something that like gave life. Like for example, in the programming, like when you have a class, but class is just abstract thing that is not running. I mean, it can be a static class, but then you make an instance that actually
Mm.
runs, and you can make as many instances as you want. So I thought like image
It
is
seems
something like that. I
it
don't
seems
know.
to me like it's something like an image, because you can have different images from the same container. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem that it happens is like then normally the images, then if images, they stay open, so you need to like best practices to close them, because they will use specific things from the system of your computer. And then anytime you need to, every time you start the virtual machine, you need to in a way recreate the instance. So
Yeah.
because in the process, how I remember from Docker was you have to build the image, right? The code is you have to build dot, and then it builds the image, and then you run the
Mm.
uh, environment.
Yeah.
But it seems to me it's kind of like the same of an instance, because then you can put different at the same time. But then you have to specify, and that could become very messy. Which port are you assigning? Because that scale very fast. You are virtualizing different kind of things, and then the port, it becomes super messy
I was
very
thinking
fast.
like what does it mean to have like two practice instances at the same time?
To practice.
I know it's not possible
That's
because the
no,
resource
but
is really limited.
that's going to another dimension. But yeah, it makes me think like that means to me like going to in a different dimension, like to instance the practice, to create an instance of the practice.
I mean, that's what we do in the sandbox. Like well, but that's kind of more like a metaphor of how we do it. Like because we're in the
We are
sandbox.
these topics are like, if people are for those who are following this, we are so sorry. This is so narrow. Like we're just speaking about coding terms.
And
Like
we're not even like expert in that, so we're just like
no,
saying
we're
whatever.
just like rumbling around. Like yeah, I think so. But in the practice, that could be interesting. Like
So like
an
basically, can
instance
we
of a
do
practice.
two practices at the same time, or like suspend one practice and start another practice with
That
like a
would be
remaining
cool.
resource?
Yeah, that actually that I like that idea. I like to think conceptually, because I think that's the difference. No, or not. Like when, because from instances, I mean, I don't know so much like low level computing, but like from when I work with instances in Java or in JavaScript, which are not really classes because at the end are objects, but anyway are classes, and they try to work like that, that you don't really assign like memory of these kind of things. I don't know how it's in C# and these low level coding languages where you need to assign memory and these kind of things. Um, what I'm saying that is because an instance, it doesn't go so level. I mean, you don't go so level in saying to the computer how much are you assigning from memory, from different resources of the computer itself, but it's just more from the code. It's a choreography, or it's a way to structure the way how the code has to trigger things in different ways, but it's not related exactly with the resources. And then when we speak about the practice, I think the idea of the resources, it comes very present. What I'm saying is like a practice is kind of like a really low level computing in a way, when we have the resources there really at the core. um,
Yeah. But maybe like, can you do practice while having dinner? I mean,
I did it.
having dinner is not. Yeah, yeah, it's true.
I did it. No, but that could be
You're
interesting.
visiting. Yeah.
I think this experience, I think these experiments could be interesting, because like, does that mean that, is that a practice? That's what the question when I arrived in Vienna I was telling you. And actually now I can reframe it differently, because when I ask you what is the minimum things that we need for a practice to happen, and I was talking in terms of resources.
Mm.
But now actually, after the experiencing the impulse dance and seeing that actually even one time we did it even without Wi-Fi, for instance, that was unthinkable for me before. Now I can say that, kind of like introduce the question again as an open question, like what are the minimal things for a practice to be a practice? And that could be interesting to think, because it's not and now I'm not referring about resources, but more about elements, if you want to think from our
Mm.
conceptual building up. That will be interesting to think, what are those things that are necessary for a practice to happen?
But is it like something concrete, or like tools, technologies as elements, or something also about ourselves?
But I think that's the point, because when I refer about elements, it's just everything that you said and more. And then at the same time, if you put like and plus on that, then you have to think on grouping and ungrouping those elements. So then you can think back to objects, and encoding wise, like basically grouping and grouping these objects. And yeah.
Yeah, because like, yeah, tools, they are like, they have multiple levels. I mean, even in the computer, but it also depends how we see things. Like if we see the thing on in myself, sitting in my front of myself as computer, then it's a computer. But it's, I don't know, like a block. Then I mean, I can also, run around this block. Like, well, not running around, but I was, you know, jumping around this block when we're at impulse dance.
But now I think if I do a reflection, like from my side, like after experience also being with you and doing the practice in the cafe, in the social space, in the cafeteria, with not public, but with people around. And then after on the studio, focus, I mean, with people focus on the work, then I can say that in a way I see like the practice, it can be, I can see it as a space where I can be Puritan, like Puritan or like purist, or like, as in the practice for me like, because for me it's very important, like for me it's very precious, the practice to get the away from my main consciousness. I really like to get away from this thing. So since that's really at the core for me, like to just be dance again and to just leave this main consciousness, then I will say, like, I could have one Puritan state that will say, like, the practice is the space where I can do that. So and therefore all the elements that I select are those who facilitate me to do such a thing. But on the other hand, also I can think as more critically from this way of thinking and say, like, in a way, that could be, that's in a way is limiting the practice, because it just means that I mean, if I just think that, I don't know, wait, so I think in short, it like could be in one way, like seeing in a Puritan state where I'm trying to select elements that can facilitate the self-dissociation as one. And on the other hand, in short, is a practice that is not bound to anything, I think.
Wait,
And,
so
and in a way, like these two, I see it quite different and they conflict in a way.
so for the first one, you meant like you want to curate so that you can be in that state in the practice. But the other one is that you have like not no control, but not the entire control, but you can do the practice in a way.
Yeah, more in a relax, more I think more close to what we do, so far. Like just dealing with everything at the same time.
And frustration.
Frustration.
But this is actually, like, I was thinking about what Klaas said to you, that according to you, like he said something that we should do it at least like 3 hours or something to make it as a performance. And then, like we already talked about that, if we do it for 3 hours, then at least 3 hours, people will get, the idea, like used to it, that they don't have to attend, like watch for the whole time, right? It's like breaks the, how do you say? It's no longer like a viewer and performer relationship.
Right.
And that was, we talked about that in the context of how people receive it, but actually it will be super helpful for us as well. If you want to like this, self-dissociation and stuff like that, you feel comfortable to perform.
Because of the viewer public is gone.
Exactly.
Because of the space is stage public is gone. Yeah.
I mean, of course, it depends on the audience, but if, let's say, they're a nice audience that we want to engage with.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know, but I think it's an interesting thing to try if we have a chance to do it.
But what I think is interesting, of this that you're saying, there's a contradiction in this, because what we're talking basically, in a way here, no, maybe it's a different thing. Wait, let me try to organize my idea. Is that when we did the general rehearsal, it's so funny to use this language. When we did the general rehearsal next to the canteen in the Impulse Dance, right?
Under the sun.
And then there were these people from the Laura Arias workshop. They were next to it. I think they just finished this workshop and they were next to it, like 7 people talking with her. And we were just doing our stuff. What I think is interesting, like in that space, because it's a public space, there is I think that's more like let's say there is not a clear intention of there is something happening. I'm saying from the public. No, actually not only from the public, but from my point of view. It's like, let me try to reframe again. So if we start from like the talk, the performance, hybrid performance we did and Saturday I had Dog D in the studio, right? Then we have audience, we have public, let's say. People were that way looking at us, and there was some expectation of something to happen. We know also, we acknowledge there were some people also, right? The space was, the configuration of the space was like that. In the space of the general rehearsal, which was outside in the canteen, the say these people from Laura Arias workshop were talking about something. It's a public space, so we are just sharing the same space just by chance. These people are talking, we are here rehearsing what we're doing, and nevertheless, because we do some, I guess, we do the practice, so I guess on their view sometimes it's like these people are doing weird stuff. Then um at the same time they will just keep on talking, you know, they will just keep on
Right.
talking, but from time to time say like, I don't know, maybe you do noise, I do noise. Like if there is more at trying to call without intention, but if there is for some reason normal way to call the attention of somebody else, these people is normally they will react, you know. It's like the same as if you're talking with your friends, and then here there's a couple, and then from time to time they're fighting, and then they will just put their voice loud. So it's just normal reflex to just look what is happening, and then just, but you come back to what you're doing because you're busy with something that is more important to you as public. In that case of them, it's like talking with Laura about their workshop and dance, I don't know. And for us it's the same. Sometimes we will feel their presence and like it's a bit
Mm.
uncomfortable, but then we come back, you know. It's a bit uncomfortable, but then we come back. So in both cases, like we are sharing the space. um so what I'm trying to say is like in that space of the in that public space, this idea of the borders are blend between the public and the stage. In that case of the general rehearsal, it happened because it's not, because we there is not an intent, there is not a clear intention. We didn't talk with them like, guys, we are gonna do this here, do you mind, we maybe will be loud or something. There is no negotiation, there is not expectation of anything. Are just humans who are there to share the public space to do what they want. And that in a way is like what when you spoke about like this idea of to blend the borders on the stage. um Yeah, it's just in relation with that, that in the public space it happened. um
Mm. I mean, it can happen. I don't know,
yeah.
because I cannot imagine how it is just go to a park and do it. Like, because that was at impulse.
No, but yeah, I think what is missing of this that I'm saying is, I think, and then we can quote again Martin, and use what he says about, you know, like the difference between like an image and just an image. And then he's speaking about like, nevertheless, like this, he used these words of like, it's like, what did he say? He said like, it's like minimal interesting art is like an art that it lingers in the threshold between exciting and forgetting, and it engages just enough to hold the viewer, but it never intervene to say what is there exciting or what not. Nevertheless, and as what I'm here, what I'm trying to say is, nevertheless, it must be art. It must be delivered and proposed as art, because otherwise it's anything. And I think this is what I'm missing in this thing of the public space. What I think is missing is like they don't know that this is art, what you're doing somehow. You know, like if you put the configuration in the back again to the studio, then already the proposal is understood as a choreographic proposal. So already is within a framework that is art. Nevertheless, we are trying to propose for the people to be free and do what they need to do.
Mm.
But we are not trying to, I mean, but it's kind of like clear that we are saying is like, yeah, do whatever you want, but in a ways like within the contract is that what we are proposing is artistic, is not whatever, is whatever within an artistic framework. And I think
Yeah.
that's clear in that
Yeah. It's
thing.
very limited or niche, whatever.
No, because exactly, it has to be whatever, but whatever within under, I mean, it has to be clear that is whatever artistic, whatever
Mm.
somehow. Otherwise, it's anything.
Otherwise, it's anything. Yeah. Then maybe we can rephrase or like relate to the previous question of what's the elements that we need for the practice as what's the what like whateverness of practice that I don't know how I don't know how to put it in the words, but like what is the whatever in the practice? What's the
I
border
like that.
of
I like that question. What is the whatever
whatever?
the practice? Practice. Yeah, because it's not about. I think this is because for me it's clear that it's not. So the question is, what is the whatever in the practice, understood as the practice, which I think is more an open question and it's a difficult one because an easy one, I will dare to say it's more easy to answer. What is the whatever in this practice? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
because then I will say like I don't know. Then I can speak for myself. Like today, I was trying to play with plants, and I don't know. I have a new framework of JavaScript, and that was my whatever. You know, like this in this practice. But the whatever in the practice as a practice is something that is more abstract, right?
I don't know what wait, how do I relate this? No, I would say no, like it start to feel like this is like a stress test of the sandbox. Like you put in lava or like you put in like Antarctica and see how the sandbox survives. And then I thought, do you know this machine that like rotates and like a huge machine that I think they have temperature control maybe and also like rotates many times to see like if you put like a gadget inside if you produce these things like
Ah,
to
okay.
do a stress test like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how
For
much
the
it will
stress,
stand so it's like that kind of machine for the
for the stress test. Yeah.
practice or sandbox could be like well just like another idea of like not like because I don't want to say like kind of push the boundary or like push the limit because that sounds like we're really like going further, like advancement kind of feeling. But if we say
No.
like a stress test of best practice, then that sounds like how do I say it? I think it's more playful. I like that image more.
Yeah, the stress test. Um, yeah, but actually, because in the last days I have been, seems I have this cab. Like I just came from the impulse, and then I'm quite straight. I mean, I saw like 2 days ago an Elena, and she was with some people. I think from somebody from Las Valencias de la Ve and other people from like dance community. And they were asking me a bit like, what do you do? And then I have this stress test very often, like, I mean, in the last days, but I liked also to go. And then I just kind of, I think I getting better in the way how I handle this in between saying like phrases that I know by heart from my research and things that I appropriate from the research, and also blending between something that is soft, because sometimes, let's say, if I will just have the word, then I will just go long in like memorize sentences that I know they will work for a conference or for a talk. But then I'm getting more sensible when I'm speaking with somebody that doesn't work, that the person is not a robot, and I'm not like, otherwise I start feeling that I'm patronizing, and then I can see myself like, okay, this is not nice. How to blend this in something that is more joyful, but it's still, it says something concrete. That's what I'm saying, because it says something that is concrete still. because I think that's what is interesting to share this with other people. People will be interested, but then also I'm trying to give something concrete, like is this, is this.
Because you
So it's
cannot just do the
whatever
practice
this
every
is.
time.
What?
You cannot just do practice every time.
Every day
To,
I cannot start practicing my practice.
like sorry, I cut you talking with this video, but oh, I didn't optimize for the video. But basically, this is the thing I was talking about. This machine that you put the phone or something inside here, and then it starts rotating for
I
stress
see.
testing. It's called
Yeah, I see.
Roller Drop Tester, and you can buy it on Alibaba for this kind of price. So if you have huge budget for best practice, maybe you can get it. I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but sorry. What I wanted to say to what you were saying was, because you cannot like meet everyone and just like show like 1 hour of practice to them.
No.
That's why you have to somehow tell the truth. Well, not the truth, but something that goes in between that you
Your
can.
truth, my truth.
Sure.
Yeah. 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 No, but I think like also I feel like because the stickers, I'm almost running out of that. I can only spend like 20 euros every time, so it's just not rentable. So what I thought actually I'm gonna do with the sticker is just like have the double of those stickers, because now there are just one per A4. Now I think I want to make a design that is just a small letter. So then I can make two stickers, basically a small letter and then the QR is still at the same size. And I think design wise could look well, because it still is like kind of the same with this, which is small from far away, that still people can recognize it. So I think I will try to do that. Like
I
just to put.
was wondering, like, well, I think it's nice with just one hashtag, but for example, we can also add another hashtag, and then that part can be like different for each sticker. Like if you print like one sheet, can you have like different hashtags on every sticker?
I guess, because then what you gonna what you print at the end is they're gonna charge you per sheet.
And
So I
they'll cut
guess,
it, right?
and then yeah, and then we cut it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
then
because
would be
then it can
like
be kind of
34. Should be like 34 or more than 30 hashtag plus, let's say
yeah.
34 times.
So it can be like a collectible item,
Yeah,
different.
like a Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yes, kind of like this.
Then we should have printed the one with the Impulstance hashtag. So it's like a limited edition.
Best practices hashtag impulse dance.
Yeah, Impulstance 21 or something.
I received your magazine, by the way.
Oh,
The
cool.
quality is way nicer, like, but it's bigger also. To
Oh,
be
well.
honest, I like more this size. It's more
Yeah,
practical,
true.
but the quality of this is very nice.
Yeah, I can already see it.
Yeah. The
Wow.
paper is like the color of the, yeah, it's very nice.
Nice.
So this is officially one of this is from Naoto, because he's my mentor officially under my school. So that's what I have to do officially in my school, is give this to you, one of these. But they screw it up here also, because I pay for these two. So I pay for these two things, 90 euros. So it's
Wow.
expensive. But then yeah, so
Now they messed
like
up
this,
the
yeah, they messed
back.
up. This should be like, you see the white thing
Yeah.
should be here, not at the back. You see?
Oh, I
The
see.
white should be
Oh,
there, because the letter should start there. You see, like the M should start.
yeah.
Just screw it up. But yeah.
Man, that's a
but
practice.
that's a practice. So, but yeah, the idea is in the future then to have a new version, like not for the school, but to have a version that is functional. That's the idea. By the way, I also put a link. I don't know, on the website if you saw it. Like maybe do you do a half host? Can I share this?
Wait a sec. This is annoying. I think now we can do it.
Yes, sure. So then I did. If I go
By the way,
here.
I like the your book's back cover, like with a code, like Hydra code on it. It really looks nice when it's printed.
Yeah, I think it was nice. Like Eva helped me with that. Also because then we put it in the front, we put a black thing to not mess too much. If you see, for instance, the front and the back is not the same. The back it has the code, but the front it has a black
Mm,
layer to not make it too messy with the white thing. So
I
it
see.
was we spent some time designing that. So you see, I put here like academic papers,
Okay.
and then I have put here a laureate thesis, which is my thesis. It's laureate. And then here then you have the
Ah.
link to the magazine, and actually but also is more thinking towards the open source thought that we start thinking also in terms of like giving the content here, people can download it,
Mm,
the content. And I think I found that this is important. From I bring this back from Vienna also, like the idea of like just let the material go. It
yeah.
doesn't need to have like the property of like ownership. Just as long as it goes and people do something, is it feels good.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, I just decided like not to think about it. I mean, it's same for a chat. Like at one point, like I mean, not at one point. At first, we thought maybe we don't publish or we publish, and then we just started putting everything online, and we just keep it doing. And it's actually like it's like when you just put everything online, it doesn't matter anymore because
No.
it's not like it like one thing doesn't stand out, so you don't really feel you will be ashamed to release this chat or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's what somebody was giving me as a feedback. Like the one theater maker from Berlin, that she a friend of Annalena, she was saying that she found so beautiful, like to go to YouTube and see, because she just used the hashtag. So I never said to somebody use the hashtag in YouTube, but she did hashtag it in YouTube, and then she found your playlist, and then
Mm.
she was saying that how beautiful it looks like. You see all this content, and then she was referring that how nice it feels to have all the content, but at the same time it feels like, because we were talking about creation, curatorial processes, and how that bugs the process in a way sometimes, because when you're doing curatorial processes, then you have a clear intention towards that. You're trying to make something out of it.
Mm.
In her case, for instance, she was speaking from her, because she's a filmmaker, like but that's what she studied, and now works with theater doing scenography and stuff like this. And she was saying that the then she will refrain too much herself to what she published. So it's going back to what you were saying, because then she will try to publish good stuff. But
Mm.
then you have so much material, and when you're working with film, then you have to deal a lot with edition, and that means time. That at the end is a pity, because it's like you're holding your back so much, because you have so many ideas and so many expectations of what you would like to do with this beautiful material, but at the end you don't do it, because you need more time and more time, more time. And I think it's a nice way to not care too much about one hand also, but it just
Mm.
to put it out. Like in our case, for instance, we said like when at some point we decide to start doing this also, because we realize also there is not too much information. It's good to somehow that if you go to internet that you find some reference of things that you can see. um So to, in a way, not initiate, but like just allow this, like just the dialogue to happen between technologies and dance, because it's not too clear. It's very it's micro niche at this point. So what we do, I think is, what I think is interesting from what we do is that it goes beyond of if it's good or bad, because it's the best. Because it's
True.
the,
It's a good point.
because it's the best. But it goes beyond that, because it's actually just more in the intentions to put it out and to actually for to people to speak about it. So if people will come to say there is bad, or if people will not say anything about it, I rather will I feel better when people will come and say there is bad than somebody than nobody saying anything.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is like it's better to try to contribute to the dialogue, because there's no
Mm.
dialogue. So then just to putting ourselves out, then we just we contribute to the dialogue for people
Yeah,
to talk
because
about it.
also like I think I was saying this quite a lot, but like when I expect something in like I say contemporary dance performance, I don't expect that is good or bad, but is there something that we can talk about? Like if after we watch that, which is I don't know, it's not a maybe it's not a good perspective to watch performance, but that's kind of like how I yeah evaluate if it's interesting to watch or not by seeing that like is there something that after watching the piece is there something that we can talk about like let's say in the chat because if it's
Yeah.
just beautiful then that's just one word but if there's something you don't like or something you want to change in different way or this worked because I had this context but it doesn't work for you because you have different context like these things we can talk about and that's good. And it, as you said, in dance tech, it's always like often falls into the beautiful or not or pretty, whatever. This very short, like it's just about aesthetics. Or I think the conversation actually is stuck in dance context or tech context, and it's
Context,
nothing
but not in
that
between. Yeah,
in
yeah.
between or something that includes both.
Yeah, that's true.
But do we do it? Like, is best practice something that we can talk? I think it's what is good about what we do, or what's best about what we do is because it's something we can relate. It's not like a crazy technology, but it's something that is like Zoom or like video call,
It's
something
something that everybody can do in a way, like, yeah,
can
it's true.
do, they can relate, but also it's not something easy that it looks like you can do it, but if you want to do it, it's actually quite complex. That also tech people can see it in that way, like it can be interesting for those people, or maybe not, I don't know.
What I think is cool is that this is very, I mean, this in a way, this is very cheap. Like just you need to have a computer, and as long as you have a computer, then you can do it. Then you need the internet, and that's it. There was like I saw something that I think Flor was having some interview or something in Instagram some days ago, so she was live, and then I was by chance like there, and then a guy was asking her about, I think it was something about, the guy was referring somehow to that you need to have equipment, and you need to, that is expensive, and this is partly true, but at the core, because I'm just putting like for what we do, because depends, like, yeah, for what we do, just we need a computer, and it as we did the practice in the impulse dance, we have a performance in the impulse dance with from what are the specs of your computer? You have a Surface computer from
Yeah,
which
Surface
year?
Pro, Surface Pro 6. I bought it on 2020, but I think it's from 2019. i5, 8 gig RAM,
And we
Intel
did the
GPU.
practice, and we did the practice with your computer. So like, as long as you have a computer, like not an old computer, you can do it. Um, and then of course it's different. Let's say if you want to research about projection mapping or like, I don't know, like 3D graphics is different. Like yes, then you need different tools, right? But I think for in what we do, uh, is so far not expensive. Um, I think we are very flexible with that.
Well, I don't
Uh,
know. No, because this is like a, to me, it's not like a resolved thing. Like as I, experimenting with Hydra inside Live Lab, like I really want to push this. If we want to do like a workshop, I mean, specifically, I'm thinking like a milestone for the CCL that, where we can like talk about it and actually do it in like a few days to the, not everyone, but everyone interested in this can actually try it, hands on. And in order to do it, I cannot expect, I mean, maybe people gathering there, they have good computers, but you never know what kind of computer people will bring. And I mean, for the workshop idea, I know like we have different ideas. One is like something like along the practice or something more, another one is more conceptual, but let's say we do something like a practice or we share the practice of practice, then we really have to think about, yeah, how to keep it lightweight and anyone can try, because that's, I think it's nice. And it's also like we use a lot of open source tools, and that's how we can contribute back to the community, not just using it and not just fixing bugs, but to
exactly.
actually share it with people.
And, and I think actually that's something that I guess that's what I was saying, that I came back with this uh, consciousness of the open source intention within the practice, because this is something that I can start thinking or talking or writing also in terms of uh, concept to evolve with the practice. Like for us, it's just the content. Let's say content, how the content is being distributed to the net and these things, but it's along with the open source mentality of an ownership. Let's say I think the talk is about ownership, shared ownership, and these kind of things. And I think this is something that in our time slowly we can start building up. Like how much how much we give, and how much politically engaged, because this is in a way is going in that direction. Like how much politically you get engaged, which are the flags that we start carrying or not. Because I think I'm saying this because as long as we have a sandbox, then the chat will be a sandbox. Still, in that case, I will see the chat as a sandbox. As long as we have a best practice sandbox as a project, then anything that we do around that is a consequence of the practice, it's fine. Say somebody, we give the project with somebody to do footage, film footage, what's called
Found
founded food,
footage.
found footage, or the project of a workshop, or different kind of thing with the publication of a book, like going to do like super serious or commercial things, like could go in any direction. And I think any of these aspects can happen as long as we have a sandbox. um so therefore, like speaking about something more consciously, it said about have more a position towards open source or certain topics in the world, that can be possible to happen out of the sandbox. Because I remember at some point I was having some problems with my own identities or something. I don't remember even when I have this one of these crises. And then I think, yes, when it happened, this thing with Colombia, and then I was feeling a bit like
Oh,
double-sided, because then I felt like, in one hand, I feel like as Colombian that I should say something, but at the same time, I feel like as a practice, as part of something very internal to me, that in the practice is, like back then I will have a different thought, because I will see it completely, don't I wouldn't know where to put it, let's say.
mm,
Now, because I'm speaking like this, I will know, for instance, that I can do something with this outside of the sandbox, is still as a consequence of the practice. You see what I mean? Like while before, say like before, what I'm saying is like that I can say it, or I can have a position as Jorge, and from my own identities, I can have a political position out of the sandbox, basically,
Yeah.
as a consequence of and still in connection with the practices, you know?
I see. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if I understand correctly, but it's not that the sandbox is affecting you directly because they are in the sandbox and they cannot reach you, but you are observing the sandbox and that's somehow you learn from the sandbox. Is that what's happened?
I don't think I follow.
Okay. Because you said the practice is affecting your, like, how you, I don't know, think, let's say. But that, is that what you said, basically? Or is,
What I'm
or,
saying, what I was trying to say is like, I think what I'm trying to say is that, let's say, an example that I was trying to put is like before, when these things happen in Colombia, there is something that I wanted to say or do within the practice, but because I understood the practice as a period space, then you can go back to what I was trying to use, the Puritan space, then I will not allow this to happen then, and I will be very drastic, because that's kind of, my personality is a bit like that. I do go party, not sleep, like not like on, or I'm very, very drastic and too much discipline. It's difficult for me to be in between. So in that example, then I guess I did not. Then I was feeling somehow like kind of like conflicted, because it still is something that is really coming from an important place on myself. So that's the place for the what I'm trying to express comes from that situation. And I'm trying to connect in this spirit of the open source or the political position, let's say, uh, now few weeks after, could be even months after that, because now I understand that out of the sandbox, I can do that. But before I didn't know that. Before, in somehow I thought I will, I guess in a way I didn't understood some kind of limits or boundaries of what was the sandbox, I guess. In a way, like now I can understand even abstractly, because I guess the image of what is a sandbox is different for you than for me. But now I can start more confident that I can speak about open source or have a more a political position in a chat or in another place, and not feel that I'm hacking or
okay.
hijacking the practice,
So
basically.
you are afraid of contaminating the
The
sandbox, basically.
sandbox. I was afraid of that
Okay.
before,
Okay, yeah.
because normally that's a space that I will be more Puritan, like Puritan, like that will go like, that space is pure. It's not for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Like we can talk about anything, and then
Anything.
sandbox is still sandbox.
Exactly. And also I think the projects, I think that's the beauty that I was talking with this woman from Germany. I think that's the beauty of what we do is like, because as long as we have the sandbox, other side projects and things that are more serious, you know, said like money wise, but also politically, like different things, they can go on, as long as we have always the sandbox that we can go back and then just
Mhm.
do as we did in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. And it's also, yeah, it's because we have the image of sandbox. Like it's not, in a way, it's not pure. It's really, well, it's not artificial because it came from the practice, but we didn't, again, we didn't plan to build a sandbox, but we found that in the practice.
But I think what I use, like in following this that you're saying is, and I'm repeating this when I talk with people in different ways, but is this is like the practice for me is like the promise of something yet to come every time what we practice. I don't know what is it, but there is the promise. So the sandbox for me is a promise of something that will come every time. But I don't know what is it, but I know it will come. So, and there was something in the book of one of the books of Martin, I think it was from Martin or somewhere else. I think it was Martin. He was saying something like, yeah, no, I put it in my own words. In my own words, what I said is like, we know what we're doing. And that's part of like what I write in the magazine. We know what we are doing. We don't know the shape it will take or the result it will have, but we know what are we doing. And as what I sent in an email to class when he was asking, what do you guys need? I said like, could be everything, could be nothing. Like, we know what we are doing. We don't know exactly what is going to happen, but we know what we're doing. So it's in a different words to say like, I know. So it's the promise of something yet to come with the practice every single time. I don't know what will happen, but I know that it will happen.
Yeah. It's, I don't know if it's, okay. Did you learn like async and promise in JavaScript?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because that's, I see it like in a, it's not, yeah, it's like a metaphor, because the word promise is like the way you used it and how it's like used in JavaScript.
This is so yeah, I understand from where it comes. It's absolutely that,
Yeah,
because a
because
promise is the promise of something that is, it has to be fulfilled at some point.
yeah, and it's not like C or C++ or this other, most of the languages that, you know, it evaluates from the top to the bottom, or it can be loop, but it's basically from top to bottom. But JavaScript is like everything is um, not synchronous, so it can go like anywhere really. And the promise is something that it's there and it's evaluated, but it's going to wait for the event
That's so
to, you know,
funny. That's so funny
fulfill.
also, because in Java, because in like, you have in JavaScript also, you have a wait and a sync. That's like
Mm.
the advanced version. I mean, you have promises, and then from promises you have to use then, right?
Yeah,
Promise, then I promise that something will happen, then do this. But then if you want to make your life more, I guess, easier, because these promises can get so enclosed that in functional programming you can get so, because I did functional programming in the last semester, and they just get so twisted in the way
yeah,
how they are triggered. And then like when you use a sync and a wait is in a way more logical, because you say like, so how it works, like an async function works with an await. It's like, yeah, you need to have an await in the async function. At some point, you have to say await. You declare async, and then at some point you say wait.
yeah.
How do
Basically, you wait until that function finishes. I mean, probably it's not true.
until the async function
Yeah.
finishes?
So it's
Yeah,
more like
yeah. You
C
declare
that,
the
you know,
function.
go from the top to the bottom. Like you never skip, like this function is just running and then you skip to the next one. It never happens in C. But in JavaScript, it's always a case that, you know, you load a file that will not wait for the loading to finish till going into the next line. And that's why you need a promise, or otherwise async, which is more, you know, natural for us because you can read it from top to the bottom.
Right.
But yeah, um, but promise is more like it gets really scattered, and but it's in a way like it's more like a practice kind of way of doing it, because you know it kind of, to me it's more like you leave like agency there.
But then what is, because then ours, so then is the different. I don't see the difference between the promise and then the sync function. I don't.
Because a sync await is that, so let's say like one of the like most probably like used is like you load a file or you load a data from other, you know, server.
JSON files.
Yeah, let's say JSON file, and it takes time, right? So you don't know if it takes like fraction of millisecond or it takes 10 seconds. So that's why like JavaScript usually skips it until, I mean, it doesn't wait until the file is loaded, but goes to the next line. And that's problematic because you want, like, for example, you load JSON and then next line you want to refer to the JSON, but if
it's
it's
not there yet.
skipped, then it's not there yet. So that's problematic. So, I mean, like for us, like logically, it makes sense that we have this await async for the load JSON. So the next line only happens when JSON is loaded. So everyone's happy.
Okay. So then, but then it's only, so then it works like that. Yeah. So the async function will happen only, so async function then await,
Like it literally
await
waits there,
happen.
the
Yeah.
execution of code. But then the promise is you have the load JSON and then you chain another function as, you know, in the promise, like then do this, then do that. But then I feel it's more interesting because it kind of, you know, like leaves a possibility there. And anyways, you skip to the next line.
Also because you leave messages for yourself, not like normal. Then
Yeah.
the promise you have like yes and no, and then the no, then you normally you can define how complex you want to give a message to, what was the error, what was the no message. So
Right.
it gives you some feedback of what was wrong in that, right?
Yeah.
I see.
It's like something for the future, whenever, either if it works or not, we don't know, but and what kind of data we get, of course we don't know. That's why we load the data.
Right. But then it's then somehow then the async function anyway is a promise. Is something that,
but it's more rigid, let's say.
is a okay, let's say okay, but let's agree there is a, it's because I don't have so much experience with both, but I guess I got more used to just like using asyncs. So then it's a rigid, a promise function, because it promised that it will execute once something is arrived.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think what's confusing is in JavaScript, there's an object called, no, class called promise.
Yes.
And that's like, that's separate from async. I mean, it's promises. Yeah, like, so async await does, you know, it's like a promise, or yeah, I don't know what now. I'm really confused with the word promise, but it promises you that it
But the
only,
promise is like at the core, because I know at the core is just is an object, because JavaScript basically
it's
is
an object. Yeah.
everything is object, and then you have primer, how you call this, objects.
Yeah, I don't know what's it's called, but like
You know,
numbers
like
and stuff,
you know,
right?
like numbers. You have the different types. You have types on numbers. You have is object types, and async anyway is an object with different properties, right? And then a promise is also an object with the possibility of two object functions. Yeah, object functions.
Well, async is just keyword, right? It's actually like a function. Anyways, like I don't know where we're going
I was
with this.
thinking, do we want to go there? Do we want to
Best
go there?
practices in JavaScript.
No, it's because I remember
Um,
I was doing this like this, how you call this, boot camp of JavaScript the last year. By the way,
mm,
I lost the subject anyway, and I have to do it again.
oh.
Then I have to do it again this year. But normally I was doing that when I met you. I was doing that,
Mm,
and then I was
right.
like, I passed through all the theory of this thing of so like the theory is very kind of clear, more or less, the theory of where for what it comes from. Um, yeah. Anyway, so let's
Maybe,
not
yeah,
go
but
there.
just to like wrap up, I think it's like also with the sandbox idea, like there's quite a lot of things that in programming we can relate a lot. Like, you know, how I see, like, why it was a promise? Yeah, because of the practice. So practice
Because
happens, then something, but it's not
I
something
think it's
that,
beautiful, but I think it's beautiful the way how you make the relation, because it's absolutely, when you started speaking about that, I thought like, yes, it's very much like that. I see like Anyways, it's the promise of something yet to come. It's like
Mm.
literally if you use those words in coding to teach about a promise, I think it's very, a promise is the promise of something yet to come. It will come as a negative or a something will happen, for yes or for no.
Yeah, even if it doesn't happen, it will send
It's a
time out.
no.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
then
yeah,
will
true.
there will be a no, yeah. And then you define no. So there is the promise of they will something will happen with it.
Yeah. And it's so like funny, like sometimes these like simple word like promise is so complex in programming. And but we talk about it like we it's something natural. Like if you're coding, if you can talk about types or whatever, that's like really simple word, but when it comes to programming,
No, it makes a
it carries
huge
so many
difference.
things with
Yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. Because I got at some point like confused also. I remember when, like a function, like the function of an object is not a function, but it's a, like it's a function, but at the end it's not the function of an object is called different. I don't remember now, but it's not I mean,
Okay.
it's not a function. It's called differently. The function of an object, and then you have a lot of this. I think what I think is cool from JavaScript is that it's so messy.
Yeah,
So messy, but it has. That's why it is the language of the web, because it has all these asynchronous possibilities to do things,
and so many
uh,
politics in the browser.
and so many ways to interpret exactly those.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
but you know
so
what?
weird for. Yes, sorry, yes, it
At
is.
one point, like I think it was not recorded, but you said like Olivia is like living example of best practices.
Yes,
And I really liked it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
also like she goes a lot with JavaScript, and I think there's like a lot of connection in there because I feel this messiness of JavaScript and how it's connected to our best practices, like in both ways, like also as an like conceptually like messy, but also we use a lot of JavaScript in there, and also how Olivia is yeah, like basically all her work is like on the browser or with Node.js, all this JavaScript stuff, and she's like really good at like how do you say it, like not duct taping, but she makes a code that you don't know why it's working.
yeah.
But she's a
Because
good coder.
I was thinking when I felt like when I think about Peter, by the way, Peter answered. So he will join, I guess, in the coming weeks, one of the chats. If Peter, if you're seeing, hello. um, Peter is some kind of like a purist. Like he's somebody who really thinks poetically about code. I would like you guys also like to meet because um, Peter is somebody who really thinks in a way like functional, like this kind of like has more like functional programming to coding that is somebody who really tried to takes he takes really the time to make the when you see the code is so clean like like he's always trying to make, of course at the end is messy because depending how much people you work, but like in seeds for instance, you see what we were doing, like he's always trying to reuse functions and functions and functions and functions, so he's trying to make like always a poetic with the way how he approached his the coding, the way how he sees that. um yeah, in this topic, I think it will be so interesting to have Peter to talk with us. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking
because I
forward.
found because I found what I found interesting is like in the practice or is how you can make the analogy in life basically from this like so serious and geeky uh, topics, that how you can actually make some sense out of that in life.
Yeah, imagine someone who doesn't know JavaScript but like listening all the way till now and trying to connect it to their life.
It was funny, but what's funny is like we stop at some point. We're saying like, what would we start saying like when we start like going on and on like, but yeah, but I promise, yeah, but not totally because this and then this and yeah, but no because of this, and then you can go over and over and over and over.
Yeah, because I think I don't know about Peter, but I think there are two kinds of programmers. I mean, most of the people are like, it works, then whatever. Like I'm that kind of person. I don't know what actually promise is, but other kind of people that really cares, all these specifications and how things work under the hood. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say I know a little bit into that direction than average programmer. I don't know, maybe it's not safe to say that, but I care a lot more. But some people are really serious about it, and they can just explain what is async and like promise.
Okay, so maybe
And
so
we
the
won't have
promise for
that.
some, so that we have the promise of something to happen is like we will have somebody will give us a good explanation about a sync and a wait promises. Like Peter Steyer will be with us. We will have a good down to earth talk about there, and then from there we can start poetics actually. That would be so interesting to start a conversation with Peter. Like, welcome Peter to the chat. Can you please share with us what is an async function and what is a promise? And then from there, just start going like.
Oh my gosh. That's next level.
That's super cool. That's super fun. It sounds like
Yeah.
super fun. Right. Okay, maybe
So yeah,
we should maybe just close the chat here and we go to backstage.
yeah.
So thank you everyone for watching. We
Please like
need
the
to do
video.
something like, subscribe. We need
Yeah.
more.
Maybe you get the sticker if you like the video. That's not possible. We don't have your data.
Yeah,
But
maybe yeah. It's just like we can think about it. We can make you. We are goodies dienst. We are goodies.
these things. Yes.
We
We
are
serve
collecting a lot
goodies.
of goodies. We have a lot of goodies, stickers, caps, t-shirts. We have so many goodies. You guys have no idea. So like, yeah, write us, and then
I have the official program from Impulsons.
we have the official program from Impulse. So yes, we are a goodies
Yeah,
dienst.
goodies things.
There's
Exactly.
so much, you guys. Like, please just contact us. We will
Yeah,
go
just
back.
just subscribe, and then in the next videos maybe we do like uh campaign.
We should
No, I don't think so.
we should start like we just actually what we can promise, like if we have some interaction, then we can start thinking to be motivated to do something with it, right?
Yeah, just
If we have
just
some
write in the
interaction.
chat what oh yeah, actually that's something I never said, like please share in the chat what kind of goodies you want.
Yes.
That would
What
be
kind of
nice.
goodies you want with the best practices? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Then maybe it will be realized this one day.
I would like maybe like best practices like I don't know. Yeah, I have to think. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Banana. Best practice banana.
Best practice banana. Okay.
A best practice banana. Okay. Yeah. Goodbye. Thumbs
Uh,
up. Ciao.